Now we're going to check in with HRMI co-founder Anne-Marie Brook, also here in New Zealand, to talk about what's next for you all and for us. Anne-Marie, today we launch the data. That's the metaphor we're using, just like you might launch a ship into the ocean. Now, ships aren't supposed to just sit in the water looking pretty. They're supposed to go places. So Anne-Marie, where are some of the places you are hoping our data go from today? Where will they be sailing? Who might be steering them to an important destination?
Thanks, Talia. So we want our data to go all over the world in as many different vessels as possible. So the image I have in mind is more the release of our product, which is human rights data, on an entire flotilla of vessels, which head off to their respective destinations. So all of our viewers here today have the potential to be steering one of those vessels. I mean, one thing I really like to remind people is that HRMI is not an advocacy organisation. We don't take our data ourselves to governments around the world and try to convince them that they could do more to improve the lives of their people. That's not our role. Our role is to produce the data in a really independent and robust way, and collaboratively, and then encourage others to use them in advocacy and in other ways that can help improve the lives of people.
Right, so you're saying that any one of our webinar participants here today or listening online in the future, they can think of themselves as the vessels that are taking these data we're launching out into the world.
Absolutely. Some of them might be like massive ships with international reach and lots of resources at their disposal. Others may be operating more at a local or national level with much more modest resources. Some of our participants here today might be riding the waves of the ocean in a lone kayak. We want to make our data useful to everyone, not only to the existing global human rights community, but also to people who don't normally look at the world through a human rights lens.
Now let's talk more about that. In particular, can you tell us more about some of the sort of bigger and better resourced vessels who are not yet using HRMI data, but soon will be?
Well, that would be institutional investors and private sector companies. The demand for human rights data from the private sector is huge. Investors and consumers are demanding that firms take better account of human rights. You know, and just to think about this particular example, investors in Russian bonds this year have taken a big hit, and this has really made them sit up and pay more attention to the risks of investing in countries that are poor human rights performers. So I would say the only reason that many of these organizations are not already using HRMI data is because we don't yet have full global coverage with our civil and political rights data.
So that's going to change soon?
Yes and no. So yes, for these private sector organisations, because Chad and his team have developed a methodology that can allow us to produce a full set of high-level civil and political rights data for all countries in the world, even before we have the funding to expand the survey to all of them. Of course, the data that we produce for the countries where we're not yet running the survey will be lower quality, but it will still be much better than what these firms already have access to. And as our funding grows, we will keep expanding the survey and the data quality will keep rising.
And can you say more about how you think this new data set will be used by private sector organisations?
So there's many use case examples, but let me just give you two. So first, I mentioned investors in Russian bonds just before. Our new data set will be extremely useful for ESG sovereign bond investors, either to inform their country exclusions policy or for tilting their country allocation weights so that they can invest slightly more in countries that are doing well on human rights and less in countries that are doing poorly. This is the data that sovereign ESG investors really need. Second example is companies who are making decisions about where to locate their factories or where to source their inputs from. They will need good information about human rights practices in each of the source countries that they are considering. No firm wants to end up on the front page of the Financial Times being critiqued for not properly managing the risks in their supply chain. And just one other thing I'd like to mention, we are currently in the process of organising a summit for September with the theme engaging the private sector in advancing human rights. So if anyone is listening to this and would like to learn more about that or potentially participate in the summit, please reach out to me.
Thank you so much, Anne-Marie. Now, whatever kind of use you might have for our data, we are here to help. We at HRMI really enjoy helping people understand our data and figure out how to use it in their own work. So please do get in touch with me if you have questions, or if you'd like us to run a workshop for your team, or perhaps help you with writing a report or submission that you want to, bolster with some more data. So my email address will be in the chat box. We also have several workshops recorded already on our YouTube channel in several different languages. So please make use of those resources too. Now we're nearly at the end of our prepared section. So let me remind you that you can keep up with our work anytime by following us on social media and signing up for occasional email newsletters. They really only happen a few times a year, so we won't be spamming you. The details are, in the chat box.